Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Belinda Murray, aka B, with us today. She's the founder and director at Be Formless in Melbourne, Australia. She's also been self-employed for some time in leader creativity and flow. Took a travel break around 2022. Had a very prominent career in sales. We're gonna discuss about that today. We're gonna discuss about burnout, type A personality, and everything in between. This podcast is brought to you by podpar.com. If you want to start or scale your podcast, go to podpar.com. I can help you monetize podcasting and create a lead generation machine out of your pod. It's also brought to you by Qualia Mind. You can go to neurohacker.com/CO wisdom. Qualia Mind is a nootropic I use for focus, memory, and drive as a busy entrepreneur. B, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you for having me on board. I'm really interested in your vitamins, actually. I need to know a bit more about that. So, yeah, that sounds like a great product, and I'm into vitamins myself. But no, thank you. Yeah, no, that was very nice of you, your intro, and thank you for having me on board. Look, if I take a complete step back, my background is actually advertising and communications. So I was in that for 25 plus years, working with I'm from Australia, Melbourne, Australia, and I worked with some of Australia's largest brands from a local perspective, but also worked on quite a few global brands, and was in a business from startup to scale up in Melbourne here, and scaled it from essentially 0 to 20 million. I had 150 staff. It was a fully integrated agency. So we had creative, strategy, client experience, PR, change behavior, all of that. And yeah, I guess for me, it's really interesting, and it's a really interesting time at the moment because we're talking a lot about sustained performance in business and in life in general. And I probably epitomized what not to do when it comes to, I guess, striving for success. And that was that I was a workaholic, and probably a recovering, workaholic in terms of working some weeks, 80 plus, 100 plus hours. I remember times when I didn't sleep for a few days if we had a pitch on and things like that. And I guess that is part of my type A personality. I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of energy to burn, but it finally caught up with me back in 2022. And so after 13.5 years, I finished in my role as, I guess, founder of Melbourne and managing director, and obviously went through the whole COVID. And in Melbourne, we were the longest lockdown city in the world. Can you believe that? And so during that period, I had to make 45 redundancies, and the business went from sitting at 20 million and dropped. I remember one day I was at home and I took a number of calls from clients, and it was right when COVID had just kicked in, and literally could see millions of dollars coming off the business. And so I guess that impacted me, and I had to make 45 people redundant throughout the period. So burnout for me is interesting in terms of it's a form of chronic stress, and I think it builds over time. And if I reflect now, I was burnt out years prior, but I was ignoring all the signs, and I was ignoring all the, I guess, the signs and the symptoms. And it's always hit me physically. So I have this broken finger at the moment, and I think it was another reminder of just that I need to keep slowing down, and you can't push. And so, at the end of April in 2022, the business had restructured. It had been bought by a holding company a few years prior. And so what had happened was there was an opportunity for me to part the business, and it was time. It wasn't feeling as entrepreneurial as I had experience and what I'm good at doing. And so I opted to to leave the business. And I don't know, Charles, have you ever felt like you're just jumping off a cliff and you don't know where you're going to land?
Yeah, like before an Ironman race, like when it's dark and cold in the morning and you're jumping in the water and you can't see shit and people are smashing your face to get ahead of you. Um, or interviewing important people, I guess. It's not really the fear. It's, yeah, a good example of auto-sabotaging. Like yesterday, literally, I probably auto-sabotage myself like once every 3 months or so, once a quarter.
Yeah.
And I'm actively working to fix that. But it's being, for example, obsessed with efficiency as an A-type myself. And yesterday I had to wait for someone for 2 hours and I didn't have my phone. So like I tried meditation, I tried walking, but I really sabotaged myself bad. You know, I got really pissed at myself and was really in destruction mode. Um,
Yeah.
in this specific scenario, right? Like not in control, not in my office working, crunching hours and like making calculation. Oh shit, I just lost $4,000. So yeah, I have a psychotherapist for that. I have friends, I have coaches, I have masterminds. But yeah, sometimes that happens. Not necessarily the fear, but the, yeah, just like burning myself, right, with anger. And I'm
Yeah.
not an angry person, but in some scenarios, I can get quite pissed.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. Yeah, the sabotaging piece as well. And I feel you. That was me waiting for someone for 2 hours with nothing around me. I'd be losing my mind too. I think it's definitely us as like just that agitation. It's energy. It's energy that we want to burn off. We want to chill. But well, so that's essentially what it was like for me in terms of finishing up in the business I was in and essentially going, fuck, I've just jumped off a cliff and I actually have no idea who I am, what I am, and where I am going to land. So I was kind of in this deep, deep unknown, and I was fighting against this need and my whole body and mind, like desperate to just do nothing. And so for the first, few weeks, I was just literally like, all right, well, I'm just going to take 3 weeks off and then I'm going to start something else, or I'm going to start my own business or do this and do that. And I already had it all worked out. But it's funny when you actually are in the state I was in, which was medically diagnosed severe burnout, my whole world just came crashing down. And so I literally got stopped in my tracks and I essentially couldn't get out of bed for quite a few weeks. I could get up, but it was not much. It was literally probably to get a coffee, eat some food, and that's where I guess the road to what does life look like when you don't work non-stop and you make sure you actively recover, you have all the plans in place to ensure that it's sustained what you do. And it was quite a journey, and it's been now 2 years, and they say it can take up to 2 years to recover from burnout and the severity that I've had, and I truly believe that. But the biggest thing for me was that it was working out my identity and who I was, and finding out, well, what does make me tick? What does motivate me? What do I want to do now? And also working out how to, I know this might sound a bit weird, but I'd always fitted my life into work, but I actually had to reverse it around and have work fit into my life, which was just so foreign to me. So essentially I got back to basics. I had to get back to basics. And so that's when I started, firstly, physically getting myself better. Got into infrared saunas, ice baths, all of that sort of stuff. And then really started to think about what I wanted to do next. And so then in COVID, I'd been interested in flow state. And as you know, it's when I like to call it when you shine your brightest and you feel and perform at your best. And essentially, I had been playing with it with my staff at work during COVID. And so I decided to get back into study. And I studied with, I think, I know you know them, the Flow Research Collective. So Stephen Kotler and Rian's business. And I decided to do the Zero to Dangerous course. And so I did that. And then I also decided to go and travel and I guess just get my mojo back, because I completely had, when you suffer burnout, it's like this void comes over you. And I felt like I was non-existent. I didn't have the energy I once had. I lost my identity. I wasn't interested in anything. I didn't have a sense of purpose. And yes, I was learning more and more about flow, but I'm a very creative person and I have a big brain. And it was nothing. Nothing was exciting me. So I decided to go to Portugal, and I went to Portugal and Spain. I've always wanted to go to Portugal. So I went on kind of like this 6-week pilgrimage overseas, which was amazing. And I did a lot of soul searching and just exploring, really. And so then I came back from overseas. And this was all still in 2022. And I came back and I thought, okay, I'm ready to go and I'm going to start my business now. And so I started getting into it, doing a bit of work. And then all of a sudden got hit again with, no, you're not. You're going to sit on your ass again and sleep and rest. And so this just kept happening. It was like, stop, start, stop, start. And I was like, oh my God, am I ever going to get better? Is this ever going to, is this my new normal? I was going to my doctor. I was like you, I had a coach. I've had a lot of coaches. I started to see a psychologist to help me through my lack of confidence, and mentally, it becomes a mental game after a while from burnout. And I kept just getting told, well, you are so used to operating from up here, your body state needs to drop down to here. And you're nodding at me. And I was like, really? Gosh, like I want to operate from here. I want to keep going at this level because it's just what I'm so used to. And everyone would always be like, I don't know how you do it, B. You're amazing. You're incredible. You can, like, how the hell do you do all of this? And I used to think it was pretty normal, but if I look back now, it was so not normal how I was operating and what I was able to do, based on falling into the heap that I fell into back in April of 2022. And it's really interesting, Charles, because I can still push myself, and I don't know about you, but flow, there's a dark side to flow as well, in terms of I can sometimes be working on something and I can lose so much track of time that I can be doing something for like 8 hours. And then I realize, oh, I haven't eaten, I haven't had any water. I've been in this flow state. And that's the dangerous side to it, right? Because that's when you can burn out, because you're not pulling out of that state, giving yourself that chance to actively recover and then go back in again and continue on. So I had to learn a lot about that. And like I said, you're nodding away, so I guess you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you have an interesting brain. We all have different brains, like me, I never get lost in flow. I mean, I shortly get lost in flow when I write stuff, right? And the effect of that is like I'm 5, 7, 10 minutes late to meeting.
Yeah.
But not to the point of forgetting to eat, like I'm not that much of a prominent yet. I'm not much bullish on deep work itself, I'm much more about like creating systems and webs out there. But yeah, you had an interesting journey because yeah, I asked myself like, okay, you should change your environment, like when you're in these states. And then yeah, some keyword that was screaming at me listening to you is like biochemistry, it's all about or biochemistry. And it's probably also what you repeat to yourself. So the psychotherapist could be some good help, because I talked about my spiral yesterday, it's very rare in me. I have like systems to prevent that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you talk yourself in some way, for example, me, I was repeating stuff that was generating cortisol, for example. Then yeah, and
Oh,
if you
yeah.
change from high performance to entrepreneurship, I mean, entrepreneurship is a whole different creature in itself, which is a cool
No, I
challenge,
know.
but it's like it's very challenging. It's not like just selling something. It's like in being in product and so forth. So how was your adaptation mentally from the corporate world, quote unquote, where there is a defined
Yeah.
box to entrepreneurship, which is like pure horizons, sometimes filled with
Yeah.
thunderstorms?
Yeah, it's really interesting. That was, look, I've always been with in the business I was in the early days when it was like owned by, like, not by a holding company. It was very much I called it organized chaos. So I was used to the chaos. But I think when you start your own company, your own business, it's just no day is the same. And so I go back quickly to jumping off the cliff. And my business is called Be Formless, and formless is all around being shapeless, like water, and water kind of moves into different kind of curves, and it shapes itself. And honestly, I feel like that's what my business is like. It's constantly formless. It hits one form or one, shapes one way, and then the next minute it's just all the water unravels again, and then it's off it goes again. And so that bit has probably been the most interesting, and the more I try and control it, the more it wants to just do what it wants to do. So I'm having to really learn to be adaptable more than ever. And I'm super flexible, and I'm super, adaptable. I love change and all of that. But you definitely need systems, you definitely need structure, but definitely need to have the ability to be super open-minded and know that on the really big thunderstorm days that there's always going to be a calm. And I think that's probably, as an entrepreneur, the hardest part to get around. And I think mindset as well, because you can quite often go, this is too hard, I should just go back into corporate world where it's easy, you've got a regular income, you don't have all the stress of your own company, your own business. But that's not what I was put on this world to do. And I'm on that mission to make positive and impactful change in the 21st century. And I think that, with my experience and my lived experience of burnout, the world is rapidly changing, and we need the entrepreneurs and we need the people in the world that have this mission to make a difference and make change for the better. And that is what I feel is my job to do. And if I was to go back into corporate world, I would fall probably back into burnout, and it would not be where I want to be. So I see it all the time when I go into companies and businesses that, we're still operating in a very old traditional way. And yeah, sure, there's a lot of new things that are coming in, but I think that there's a big job still to be done on how to, what I like to call, optimally thrive in business and as teams. And I guess that's where, for me, on the shitty days I have as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly reminded that that's why I'm here. That's my shining light. That's what I'm here to do, and that keeps me going.
Right. Very bumpy road entrepreneurship. You don't have like clear guidelines as well. Can get quite confusing vs the corporate world that teaches you to be good at like one specific thing. Um, yeah, I'm curious because like me, for example, yesterday's incident, you can all like find the roots of my angriness with my ego. Oh, I'm Mr. Important, like my time is worth like $2,000 an hour. And that's rooted in probably something from my childhood, like probably something related from my dad that was an entrepreneur. and like I'm not worthy if I'm just not doing anything, so how do you dig down in yourself and find these roots of trauma and release this tension?
Yeah, really interesting. And it's very tribal, isn't it? And I've been, funnily enough, well, not funnily enough, but I've been interested in internal family systems. I don't know if you've heard of IFS, and I've also been doing a bit of EMDR therapy as well. And there's, obviously we've got tribal systems from our families, and the other thing is, I guess the traditional era has always been work hard. You have to work hard to succeed, and you have to work and succeed. And, if you don't work hard, you're not succeeding. And then, there's that not good enough, and then your ego kicks in. And I've always been like that myself. And so what I've had to really, as part of this 2 years of just exploration and getting to where I am now, I stripped everything back. Like my whole life, or my whole world turned upside down. And so I've explored my internal family systems. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, because I'm not, but essentially we have these different systems within us, where there's different family members within our own system, and understanding the angry person, the empathetic person, the controlling person, and noticing when those different family members in your system flare up, and why are they flaring up, and where is that coming from. And generally it's come from, how you've grown up and things like that. So that's been really interesting for me, because it's really enabled me to explore, well, what has probably driven me to, have this kind of behavior and this way of being for so long, and what do I need, what systems do I want to put forward or bring more forward, and put the other ones like behind. So it's been a lot of that. And then there's this EMDR therapy, and what it does is it's like, I guess it's like a form of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just have a memory blank, not meditation. It's a form of, it'll come to me. But essentially it's
Mindfulness,
like,
consciousness, what?
yeah, it's a bit of that, but essentially it's like a wand, and it works with your eyes, and essentially it recalibrates your mind. So it takes trauma and,
Hypnosis?
yes, that's the word I was looking for. Oh my God, can you believe it? Like I was just having a total mind blank then.
I can believe it. I have those sometimes too.
Oh my God, I don't know what they are. That's why I probably need those Qualia tablets. And I haven't had a coffee yet. But essentially what it does is it helps you work through any traumas you've had in, whether it's childhood or, like as you've grown up. And essentially what it does is it recalibrates your mind, and it puts the traumas from the back of from your prefrontal cortex to the back of your mind. And it basically, it reprograms you. And I'd read about it ages ago. I'm a lifelong learner, probably like yourself, and I'm interested in the most sometimes weirdest and wackiest stuff, but then I'm interested in, mainstream stuff as well. And then so I explored that, and yeah, so essentially I have been on a journey of working through, as part of who my identity is, well, when my ego does play up, why is it doing that? And why is it behaving the way it's behaving? And so becoming completely aware of when I'm not being myself, and kind of, or letting the external factors take over versus being more at peace with who I am. But that's always ongoing, right? Like I think we get better at it, but we have those moments like you had yesterday, and I have them too, and you kind of go, we're never going to be perfect. So I think that's the other part of humans and entrepreneurialism, and having those moments of just being like everyone else. And I also say we're never going to be always completely thriving, in terms of, we're going to have the survival days. We're going to have days where we're just surviving to get through the day. But there's definitely a way to oscillate between the two and also be super aware of when you're operating in, say, for example, that survival mode, or you're operating from a place of ego. Sense checking yourself and being super aware of that's not where I should be and what I should be, and how do I pull myself out of it. And so when you talk about your systems that you have in place, I have the same in terms of, well, what am I going to do to get myself out of that so that I can get back to where I should be? And that's something that I've got really, really good at.
Love it. B, thanks for today. Where can people find out more about you?
So LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me, Belinda Murray, and yeah, I'm also on my website, but that's currently being worked through, updated, I should say. But yeah, Belinda Murray, LinkedIn. Love to chat to anybody about all things life, work, and yeah, it'll be great.